God says, not one of them will ever see the land I promised on oath to their ancestors. No one who has treated me with contempt will ever see it. But here's the but, and this time it's a really good but. This is for us. This is the message for those of great faith. But because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. My name is Dan. If I don't know you, I'm senior pastor here at Lifepoint Church, and you might not know this. You've just kind of come to church. Maybe this is your first time. Someone's brought you along, and you're like, hey, what's going on? You've actually picked a great Sunday. You've stepped into one of the most historic Sundays in our church ever. Did you know that? Today is actually a very big day because we are about to embark upon something incredibly exciting, something incredibly missional for our community, and also incredibly difficult as well. We're about to embark upon a new journey. See, we have a great mission here at Lifepoint, and our mission is to make Jesus known and see thousands of lives transformed by the gospel. And I just want to read out, we had a baptism this morning. We've had quite a few baptisms recently, and we had one this morning. Annie got baptized. I don't know if any of you guys know Annie. She sometimes comes to the night service, and she's been doing Alpha, and she's met Jesus, and her life's been transformed. And what I wanted to do is I just wanted to share a bit of her story, okay? So I'm going to read this out, and you're going to pretend I'm Annie, okay? So she's not here right now, but she emailed me her testimony that she read out this morning, and it was just so powerful. I'm not going to do the whole thing, and I'm not going to do it anywhere near as good, but this just shows exactly what we're trying to do at Lifepoint. When I say thousands of lives transformed by the gospel, this is the kind of transformation I'm talking about. This is just one story. And he says, before Jesus, my life was unmanageable. I had no direction. I lived life on my own terms, and being an addict at that time, my life was crazy. It was miserable and nothing ever went right. There was a lot of pain and sad memories as I was growing up. And there were some good ones too, thanks to my mum. But there was violence due to alcohol. There was drug use. There was police corruption that even circled the death of a family member. And as I grew into a teenager back in the 90s, it was quite normal to use drugs in the town that I grew up in. And I got involved. And once involved, it was very hard to get out. I've been assaulted in some horrible ways. I've been kidnapped. I've been tied up. I've been held hostage. I've been to jail quite a few times. And at all times, when all of these bad things would happen, I believed that there was a God who got me through it. Even though it amazes me to think that I survived all of this, there has to have been a higher power up there watching over me. And I used to feel sorry for myself, and I was angry at the world, and I was angry at God, and I used to blame him, and I used to blame everyone else. But 25 years later, I was really sick. I was sick and tired of always fighting for my life, and I was sick of the sadness. I was sick of everything going wrong for me. I was sick of losing all the people that I loved. I was at the end, and I didn't know what to do anymore. It was scary. As I suddenly knew I had to turn my life over to God. I couldn't manage it. I'd stuffed it up. I didn't have a relationship with him, so I had to throw in the towel and put my faith in him. I went to rehab. I prayed. I became vulnerable, and I let God lead the way. And 6 years later, I'm clean. I went back to court, and I finally got custody of my children again. I have my family back, and I'm grateful that I've come this far. I no longer hold resentments. I've been able to love, and I hold no blame to other people. I take full responsibility for my actions. Everything I've been through, I can thank the Lord for because I learnt strength and patience. I learnt to be strong. There are days that aren't so perfect. I now struggle with systemic sclerosis and also fibromyalgia. However, I believe that this also has brought me close to God. And then she quotes this morning, incredibly, from Psalm 119, verse 67 to 75. Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I obey your word. It was good for me to be afflicted, so that I might learn your decrees. I know, O Lord, that your laws are righteous, and in faithfulness you have afflicted me. That's some deep theology of suffering right there, I can tell you. And she says, Lifepoint, I can just go on. I better not read the whole thing. She says, Lifepoint has brought me closer to God. Thank you to everyone. I used to drive past here and feel like I needed to come home here. One day I looked at Lifepoint up online and I came to Harmony Day. It was an amazing day. It was beautiful. I was so uplifted when I came in. I could feel God in the house. I've learned so much coming to Lifepoint. I'm now reading the Bible. I've done an Alpha course and I'm currently doing my second. I get so much out of listening to Dan and Steph when they preach. I didn't make that up, okay? Just added that in. They are wise and beautiful and funny and caring. Beautiful, that was to me, clearly. It's like God's speaking to me through them and telling me everything I need to hear. And she goes on talking about a time where Steph was preaching and she actually put into action exactly what Steph had said. And Steph was talking about, I won't read the whole thing, but talking about what it means to keep the light on. And so she repaired a relationship in her life and it went incredibly. And she says here, I now know that I am following God. Lifepoint's opened my eyes and helped me to achieve this. And this is why I want to be baptized here. And I'm honoured to be baptized. I feel so welcome at Lifepoint and I want to be part of this always. I want to get baptized as I want a new life in Christ. I want to dedicate the rest of my life to Him and I want to shout it from the rooftops publicly because I'm so proud to have Jesus in my life. I'm so grateful for all the blessings and for Him loving me back to life. I love that. I want to be filled with the Holy Spirit so that I can feel God's power in my life. Amen. How good is that story, hey? Yeah, give God a round of applause. There's so much more to that story. I've sat down with Annie many times and just chatted to her. And if you ever see her at church, just go up and ask, just say, Annie, tell me a story. She'll tell you one. She's got so many incredible stories. Some of them are really sad and tragic. It's just beautiful to see what God has done. It's all God, what He's done in her life. And maybe not every story is going to be as absolutely transformative as that. And you might not see it on the outside as going, whoa, from there, from like all the way over here to all the way over here. But I can tell you that there are so many other stories of transformation in this church as well. But it's just the beginning. There are so many more to come. And what you've stepped into today is that we're actually right now at a pivotal moment about to begin this new building project. And I'm going to talk about that just in a second. But I just want to take a moment, guys, to kind of understand that this is exciting, but it's actually really difficult as well. We've kind of come to this moment, and I feel like with this whole building project, and I'll go through the history in just a moment, but I feel like we've kind of got to the base of the mountain again. It kind of feels like oh my gosh, a great miracle from God. Whoa, okay, the next bit. And that's how faith kind of works. God gradually stretches our faith. But it's so worthwhile. Our mission is to make Jesus known in this region and see thousands of lives transformed by the gospel. And I can tell you that is a mission that's worthwhile. That is a mission that's worth giving your life to. That's a mission for you and your family. And that's a mission for your community and your colleagues. That's a mission I'm going to give my life to this mission. Here's the thing. Just because, and Annie's story is a reminder, just because something is from God, just because God is with us, doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Isn't that right? In fact, anyone here who's ever tried anything before or ever stepped out and tried to pioneer something and done something new, you would know that the most worthwhile things in life are difficult by default, aren't they? Nothing worthwhile has ever been easy. That's the reality. Nothing worthwhile has ever been easy. I still remember 18 years ago, all right? This moment's like seared into my memory. I was there, I was out at Chermside, and I was at one of those fancy cafes, and I was with this beautiful girl who I thought was like amazing. And we've been on like 2 or 3 dates, and it's kind of weird. I don't know whether it's just like the Christian dating scene. You might have had some experience with that or something like that. Maybe you're not a church person here today and you just kind of come in. Christian dating, can I just say, can be really weird. It's kind of like, hello, I've just met you. Will you marry me? It's a bit strange sometimes, okay? Some of you guys have experienced that. Maybe you're experiencing it right now. Maybe you're on a date at church. That's okay. Great place for a date. Come to Lifepoint Church. I was on a date. Well, I hoped it was a date. You ever been in that experience before? You're like, is this a date? Is it not a date? I didn't actually know. We've been hanging out a couple of times. And I just said to this, I was like, all right, I had this whole speech. I actually wrote it down. I had a whole speech prepared She'd be like, all right, I know I need to lock this girl down. She's amazing. And I can see a few other guys, young adults at church that are kind of circling. So there's a timeline here, okay? So I'm like, all right, I had this whole speech prepared and there's this kind of lull in the conversation. And I could just see, she kind of just smiled at me like, well, give me the pitch. I could kind of tell, come on. And I'm like, and everything I had rehearsed to say, I forgot. And all I could say was, I like you. Yes, my voice broke. I like you. And she went, thanks. I'm like, this is not going well. And she just was silent. And I'm like, all right. And I'm like, maybe we could like see each other more. Maybe we could make this like a thing where we see each other all the time. We could make a go of this. I'm like, what am I saying? We can make this thing could be a thing. And I'll never forget what she said. She looked at me and she smiled, this beautiful smile, and she said, maybe. I was like, no, this is not how I planned this going. It was so hard. And I just knew in that moment, this is not going to be easy. This is going to be really difficult. But it's going to be worth it. I was like, oh, look at her. She's so worth it. And just side note, I've now been married to that girl for 15 years. So boom, mic drop. But it was, and I can tell you, it hasn't always been easy. But it is so worth it because the most worthwhile things in life are the most difficult. Let's go back to our goal for a second. To make Jesus known in our region and to see thousands of lives transformed by the gospel. That is huge. And you might be thinking about our culture right now, and I don't know, you might be thinking, I don't know, Dan, like I've been reading the newspaper recently and I'd be happy with one life transformed, like the way that I see Christianity going. Like people come, I don't know, like it seems like the church is in decline. It seems like people aren't coming to church anymore. It seems, Lena, did you hear about the guy that kind of lost his job just because he was a Christian this week? I know it's much more complicated than that, but that's kind of, the summary. It's like, I think this is not possible. I'm not sure we can actually do this. Now is a moment tonight for you, for every single person here. If you maybe you're just visiting today, but if you call Lifepoint home, tonight is a moment of faith. To let you guys know, if you don't know the story, we've actually reached a crossroads at Lifepoint. One part of our mission is actually having somewhere to meet, having a space to worship and to do mission and to do youth group, and we've reached the point where our space has become an obstacle for ministry and for mission. We often can't be here, as Grady was saying, or as just talked to any of our youth leaders, talk to Nick, our youth pastor, we get kicked out of here all the time. It's actually become, clearly Grace want to use this space more. It's become an obstacle for our mission to be in this space. And I was reading Isaiah 57 a couple of weeks ago. It says, build it up, prepare the way, take every obstacle out of the way of my people. And here's the thing, God has been doing this. I know there's plenty of people here that haven't been here for the entire journey at Lifepoint. So let me just take 2 minutes to take you through how we know God has been preparing us for this moment. No matter what, God's been preparing the way, and He's already been removing obstacles. Let me just do a little history lesson, all right? This might bore some of you. Just stay with me for a moment, all right? All the way back in 2007, do we have my timeline here? We decided, hey, we're gonna plant a church up in Redcliffe somewhere up near North Lakes, because we know it needs it. And we want to plant a church where even unchurched people are really welcome and feel comfortable to come. And that might even be you today. You are so welcome here today. And Grace College had this awesome venue that actually said yes. They're a Lutheran church. Like, yeah, you guys can meet here, even though we're a Baptist church. It's okay, wow, that is a miracle. And then in about 7 years ago, in 2015, we had all these young adults coming, and we had some teenagers that were coming to know Jesus, and we thought, we're going to just start a night service. But there was a Lutheran church, a meeting here at night time. So we thought, that's okay, that's their space. They're allowed to use their space, yes. So we should actually go find a new space. And so we looked and we searched, and we finally found this place. It was a warehouse. Anyone here remember a place called The Hub? Anyone here around for those days? Yes, we found The Hub. And it was amazing. It was a great spot. It was beautiful, right in the middle, and it was kind of in our price range, a little bit above. But the problem is the council said, you can't meet there. They said, you can meet there, no problems. All you need is 70 car parks. They said, how many car parks do you have? We said 2. Pretty close, really. They said, not a chance. And I was getting really depressed and down. And then I remember my wife said to me, Steph's like, hey, pray and go again. Don't be so down. This is the space for us. And I was like, really? That's a bit, why don't we look somewhere else? And all right, let's just try again. So I remember saying to Jace, our executive pastor, why don't we just try again? And Jace is like, what do you mean try again? Like, what would that involve? Like, just send another email. Let's just try again. So Jace did a nice email up, basically said, you know how you said no? How about you say yes? Have you ever thought of that, council? Pretty good idea. And the weird thing is they came back and they said, yeah, you sent me the email, Jason, and the day I was here, all the town planners happened to be in my office, and we had a quick chat. We said, don't worry about the rules. You can meet there as a church. How weird is that? That a government would say, don't worry about the government's rules. Like, that never happens. It's a miracle. And more miracles happen. We had a prayer meeting that went to, this story's going to go way too long. Anyway, long story short, we had a prayer meeting and we thought God was calling us to get a property. The next morning, a property came for sale that we secured within weeks, or maybe it was about 7 weeks, right on the biggest intersection in this whole region. Like literally the next day. And then we thought, well, what do we do now? We bought a property, and there's just a few people that gave to that. Only a very few people actually put in for that. And then we borrowed the rest of the money. It was incredible. And then we thought, well, we can't afford this and the hub. So now we need a night space while we're building our building. Where are we going to meet for like 3-4 years? So, all right, we'll go to Grace and we'll just see. And we came to Grace, and Jason and I had a meeting with Grace. I remember the principal said, hey, funny timing. Last Sunday was the last Sunday the Lutheran church is using it. They're not using it anymore. They're using a different venue. You can have the chapel at Grace for the night service. Oh, and by the way, you can have Fridays as well for your youth group. We were like, what are the chances of that? That is God's crazy, miraculous timing. But then we hit a block. Many of you guys were around for this. The block that we own down there, 541 Anzac Avenue, right on the corner there at that intersection of Anzac Avenue and Deception Bay Road. It turns out we couldn't build on it. No matter what we did, stormwater, acoustic, traffic, no matter what happened, it was impossible to build on that corner. And I still remember this depressing meeting I had with a real estate agent to be like, yeah, look, we can't build. We're just going to have to sell it. He's like, no worries. I'll start the paperwork and we'll sell it up for auction soon. And I still remember I remember this feeling. It was late at night. I'm driving home in my car going, oh, God, what were you doing? Ever had that moment with God? Why did you lead us through all of these hoops only to have us have to sell the block? It's a little bit embarrassing and it's really annoying. I'm being a little bit selfish, having a hissy fit. And the next day I get into work and Greg Pierce, Next Generation's pastor, he comes in and he's like, Dan, my wife told me to give you this book. It's called 40 Days of Prayer. I don't know what it's about, but she reckons you should read it. He's like, I know you've got 1,000 books. Don't ever give me a book. I've got too many books. And he shouldn't have done that. No. He gave me this book and I went, you know what? I'll read it. And I read the first page and it just said, have you ever had something in your life you thought was from God, but it didn't seem to work out? Maybe you didn't pray enough for it. It's time to pray. Would you take it? And the challenge was in this book. Would you take it to God every day for 40 days and see what he does? Not that it's saying he'll always say yes, but see what he does. So I was like, don't sell it for 40 days. And this is just crazy. Everything changed. Like the traffic problems changed, and the acoustic sound problems changed, and the stormwater problems changed. We couldn't believe it. Like our project team's like, Dan, it happened again. You never believe it. We got a new consultant and he came and said, no, it's fine. What do you mean it's fine? No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And then at the beginning of this year, Moreton Bay Regional Council said, you are approved. You can build your own church building on there. There's literally nothing stopping us on Monday starting to build our building. Build for the generations that are to come. How good is that? Can we just give God a round of applause? How amazing is that story? Yeah, it's good to know the story about what God has been doing. There is no obstacles in the way. I lied, except one. There's one obstacle on the way. We need to raise some money to build it. And right now is a great moment of faith. We need one last miracle. And it could be, I think, the biggest miracle of all. Because this miracle is going to involve every single person that calls Lifepoint home. All the other ones, it's easy to feel like you're just kind of along for the ride a little bit. Do you know, it's so good what those leaders are doing, what that project team's doing. It's so good what the mission of God is happening at Lifepoint Church. But this one is going to be one for all of us. So I just want to really quickly look at Numbers 13 tonight, because this is a story of faith. This is a story. So if you have a Bible with you, you might want to go to Numbers 13. Otherwise, it's going to be up on the screen. This is a story where Israel, just to give you some context before we get to that. So Israel have been on this great journey. We actually looked at it. We looked at Exodus this year, coming out of Egypt. And they've seen miracle, just like we have as a church. They've seen miracle after miracle after miracle. And they know their God's with them. They've seen huge plagues happen to rescue them. They've seen a whole ocean just like and part. They've seen miraculous provision from heaven. They've seen pillars of fire. They know God is with them. And God said, I've got an inheritance for you. I've got you this promised land just for you. And it's going to be an amazing place. And it's not just to bless you, although it will bless you. It's actually to be a base for mission. That's what Israel never got right. It's actually a base for you to reach the rest of the world. And so the Lord says to Moses, all right, well, let's check this out. Let's check out this promised land, Canaan. Send some men to explore the land of Canaan, which I'm giving to the Israelites. From each ancestral tribe, send one of its leaders. So get the leaders together and let's go claim our land. Let's do this. Now, let's have a look at these names of the leaders, because it's really interesting, I reckon. This actually tells us something about the story of faith. If there's anyone, thinking about baby names right now, maybe thinking about having a child soon, there's quite a few pregnant women in our church. If there's anyone thinking about baby names, here's some really good suggestions. Can I give you some baby name suggestions? These are the 12 anointed leaders of Israel. Shammua. That's nice for a little Shammua. Shaphat. Egal. That's so cute, little eagle. Palti. Gadiel. Gadi. Amiel. Setha. Nabi, my favorite, Giul. How cute's Giul? No? Then the last two, Caleb and Joshua. Here's my question. How can we laugh at the first 10 names? Then we get to Caleb and Joshua and you're like, oh, that's a nice name. That's good. I think we might even have some Calebs and Joshuas in the room. If your name's Caleb or Joshua, can you just raise your hand quickly now? Do you have any Calebs or Joshuas here? Yeah, hey, Joshua. Here's why. 10 leaders of Israel went into the land and had no faith. And they said it can't be done. Only 2 out of the 12 had faith that God could do it. And so 10 people, their names are lost to history. Not many people calling their kids Gil. But 2 names carried on and went down in history as men of great faith. Let's look at the story quickly. They came back to Moses and Aaron and this is the leadership team, the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. It's amazing. It's on the corner of the biggest intersection of Moreton Bay. It's amazing. But, there's always a but, the people who live there are powerful and the cities are fortified and very large. There's one more obstacle standing in the way. It's the biggest one that would challenge every single person. Giants were in the land. We can't attack those people. This is verse 31. They're stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there. So, man, if you want a brain trip, go look up Nephilim on Google or something. It's just apparently they were like giants, basically. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. And we seem like grasshoppers in whose eyes? In our own eyes. And we look the same to them. I just want to get honest with you guys for a moment. I had a grasshopper moment a few weeks ago where I looked at this great mission and this great project ahead of us to remove the obstacles for mission. And I had a grasshopper moment. I thought, I think we're pretty small. I think I'm not sure we can do this. We sent out for some quotes, how much it would cost to build a church building. I don't know if you know anything about the Queensland construction industry right now. You might not. But things are pretty rough out there. Things are pretty expensive out there. And some quotes came back. And I was like, that can't be right. That's a big number. Let's get some more quotes. And more came back, even a bit bigger. I'm like, okay, this is going to be difficult. We need some faith. Comes this one guy, Caleb. Caleb, it says in Scripture, he's got a different spirit. He's a pioneer. Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. I love that. I love that his faith was so certain. He wasn't like, hey, there's a pretty good chance I reckon we can pull this one off. Like I saw what God did in Egypt. I reckon like 60-40 he can pull this one off. He's like, nah, we can certainly do it. And the next chapter, Numbers 14:6, Josh and Caleb, who were among those who had explored the land, they tore their clothes in front of the entire Israelite assembly. And tearing your clothes might seem weird, but back then it basically means like, I'm so serious about this. Try it next time you're in an argument. It'll work really well. The land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. And it just got me thinking. I look at Caleb and Josh and I think, how come 10 people saw God do incredible miraculous things and 10 people went into the land and said, that's cool, but that's too much? And how come 2 people, just 2, it's always a remnant, how come they saw all the same thing, that had the exact same evidence in front of them, and they went into the land and they went, yeah, boy, this is it. This is the one. 10 people are going, having a meeting about, those guys are so big, not a chance they're going to be able to get this done. And Joshua and Caleb are going, they're having a meeting about us. They're like, oh man, I saw those Israelites, they look tough. I'm a giant, but I'm scared about those guys. Their God's with them. What's the difference between a grasshopper mindset, which we see so often in our culture and actually so often in the church, and a God is with us mindset? I think there are 2 types of people. There's a protective generation that want to protect what they have. So, it's looking pretty scary out there. Culture's against us, let's protect. And there's a pioneer generation that have a God is with us mindset. There's people that see obstacles and there's people that see opportunities. There's people that despair and there's people that hope. There's people that see problems and there's people that see prayers that need to be prayed. Well, that's fine, we'll pray about it. There's people that look for security and there's people that, when the going gets tough, look to sacrifice. There's people that say, I can't. While others say, no, God can. There's people that say, hey, I think it's time. Oh, look at the time, it's time to give up. And people go, hey, look at the time. It's go time. Let's persevere in this. There's those ultimately governed by fear. And there's those who have an incredible faith. We were at a meeting in our board of elders, okay? Our eldership is basically just the people that kind of been voted in by the partners of our church to kind of help keep us safe, to govern us, to look after our vision, to hold me accountable to our whole pastoral team. And we're in this meeting and we just dropped a bomb. We reckon, and I'm just going to drop it right here, okay? Here's how much we think we need to raise. I'm talking like we're going to borrow the rest from Queensland Baptist, but here's how much we need to raise. $2.5 million. That's actually our fundraising goal. Just letting that sit for a second. And it sat in our eldership meeting. And it got kind of quiet for a moment as everyone went, wow, yeah. And then I never forget, one of our elders, and I'm not going to say his name because he'd hate that. He wants to be anonymous, but he said, I'm excited. That's a God number, not a human number. Only God could pull that off. Look at the size of our church. We're not a big church. Like, that is a number only God can pull off. And look at how God has led us so far. God's putting us into a corner where only he can do an incredible work. Let's do it. And I was like, whoa. And then this is the best part. Straight away, he just went, and you know what? I want to give first. And he's been saving up, him and his wife have been saving up for a house. And he said in that meeting, like, the house can wait. I want to give $30,000 first towards this goal. And I was like, he's not a rich guy, like literally not a rich dude. And I'm like, I thought two things. Firstly, I thought, you should check with your wife about that before you say anything at the meeting. But he did check with his wife. It was incredible. And she's just as generous as him. And I thought, I am so glad that we live in a church, so I get to be leading in a church that has Caleb and Joshua like faith people. Not a church full of egals and guels. I'm not against those names, by the way, if you know someone that is named that. But like, I'm so glad that is the church we are part of, that has a mindset that says, and we've always been like this from the very beginning, God is with us. That's what he can do. It's really exciting, actually, just in that little team. 8 families. There's 8 people on the board of elders and with their spouses. Those people gave first. They're the ones making the big calls. They just gave first. And they've already given $220,000. Just those 8 families have already given that much. And that's Jason and Heidi, and that's me and Steph as well have given first. And if you think for a second, I'm not saying this to like big myself up or to draw any kind of like, I'm not trying to say, wow, look at me. I really am not. But in case you're thinking for a moment, oh, typical pastor, just trying to get money, I can tell you this. I don't get money with this project. I lose money in this project. Literally, like I'm not going to like give values or anything. I kind of feel uncomfortable about that. But Steph and I gave a significant amount to that. Like a big amount that I've never spent on anything before in my entire life, maybe apart from like a home deposit. A really huge sacrificial amount. I remember talking to Steph, and she said, yeah, but Dan, what is the faith of future generations worth? And Jason and Heidi are the same. You'd be surprised. Like, we're not rich guys. And I'm not saying that to say, look at me. I really am not. I'm saying that to say, I believe in this so much. This is part of what God is calling us into. This is the fight of faith. And we've got heaps of our other key leaders and key staff and volunteers, and they're starting to give first as well. And it's just exciting to see. Guys, we have a mission to see thousands of lives transformed. And it's so easy to think the best days of the church are behind us. But they're not. Did you know the best days of the Australian church are ahead of us? Did you know that we are going to see thousands of people come to know Jesus, thousands of Annies? All it's going to take is one generation to stand up with faith like Caleb and Joshua and say, let's do it. Our God is surely with us. He's been with us in the past and he's going to be with us in the future. But we're going to ask every single person, no matter what, whether you earn $30 a week or like $3,000 a week, to just ask one question. If you're a life pointer, what is God calling me in my means and in the unique situation that I'm in? What is God calling me to contribute to this vision? Because I would love to say, regardless of the number, I would love to say that every single person at Lifepoint was part of it. And when we see thousands of lives transformed in the generations to come, I'd love there to be every single person in Lifepoint go, what the? I was part of that. God actually used me. God used my large amount or my small amount. Like, God actually used me in that. Let me just leave you with Numbers 14, verse 23. This is what God says to the leaders. God says, not one of them will ever see the land I promised on oath to their ancestors. No one who has treated me with contempt will ever see it. But here's the but, and this time it's a really good but. This is for us. This is the message for those of great faith. But because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. And here is the blessing for the descendants of Israel, which is us. It's not just a great place for us. The inheritance and the blessing is fruitfulness in our mission. It's fruitfulness to see thousands of lives transformed. And I just want to invite each and every person to be part of that. And we're going to be talking about that. We're going to have a few different stories over the next few weeks. We're going to be talking about the timeline, the why, what it looks like. We're talking about what it means to stretch our faith over the next few weeks at Lifepoint. It's just so good to be on the journey with you. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did and you want more Lifepoint content, subscribe to our channel right now. Or if you're in the area around Moreton Bay or Rothwell, head to our service. Sunday, we'd love to see you there. lifepoint.org.au for all the details. We'll see you soon.